Hi guys, welcome back. Hope you are excited to hear what I have to say in more detail about the ODA Amarantine. Before I carry on, I want to thank ODA for having making this possible. Um, ODA Amarantine. What is the Amarantine? What is it all about? Well, the Amarantine, especially this edition, which is the wood edition, it's a sort of a stabilized wood shell, beautiful IM. Honestly, the video pictures do give it a bit more justice, but the video doesn't do it justice. It is an absolute beauty of an IEM, much like another one from their company, which is the Helios, which I have got here as well. The quality of the wood, the grain, I don't know what it is. It just, they look just gem-like. Honestly, the Amarantine looks like a gem. It looks honestly like a gem. Anyway, this is the company's flagship IEM currently. There is something special brewing, which will be launched hopefully during the coming months. But this is currently the company's flagship IEM. It's a 5BA IEM. They've got a couple of other models, 3BA as well, and another single DD besides this, another single dynamic besides the D100, the Helios that I've got here. And much like the D100 Helios, the Amarantine has, in my opinion, ticked the right boxes, not only with regards to the build. We're not even going to delve there. With regards to the accessories, acceptable. Maybe perhaps a little bit more selection of tips would be nice, but overall I can't criticize it. The cable as well, it's a nice cable, although it's not an exchangeable termination cable, but it's a nice cable. In that department, they've ticked the right boxes. I mean, we are talking $500, so not exactly a budget IEM. It's a solid mid-tier IEM. But where they've really ticked the right box, for me at least, is in terms of its performance, in terms of its sound. This is, I mean, it's been an experience. It's been a really good experience listening to this IEM over the last couple of weeks, and comparing it with other similar configuration IEMs, 4 or 5 BAs, which is what I've got basically here. Although if you guys do want, I can make a comparison with IEMs which have got more BAs. That's not an issue. Although if you guys follow me, I always try and keep things kind of similar with regards to the configuration, number of drivers and everything, just to make things more balanced, more fair ultimately. I mean, to take, for example, the Amarantine, and let's go compare it with, for example, an IVipQ or something like of those lines. I mean, it's just not a fair comparison. Although, mind you, having said what I just said, I don't think the Amarantine would fare badly with regards to a lot of a lot of areas, comparing it to the IVipQ. But anyway, much like the Helios, which the first thing that jumped to mind was the musicality that it offered, and that's something that I think oftentimes we kind of lose ourselves, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, some of us like the more musical aspect of IEMs, some of us like the more clinical aspect of an IEM. How good is it at fetching all the last nuance and all the left and right holographic imaging and all of that, all of that positioning of instruments and so on. It's all very nice and dandy, but it's only obtainable or only doable under very specific conditions. You have to be in a nice quiet environment and so on and so forth. And ultimately, I would like to believe that we want to use these IEMs, want to put them in the ears and go outside and have a walk, go out with the missus somewhere, and whatever. She has her IEMs while she's walking, I have my IEMs while I'm walking, or if I got a gym, I want to give them usage, because that's why they are IEMs. And in those conditions, oftentimes we don't really fully appreciate what an IEM can do with regards to the last technical aspect of it, but rather it's more if it's musical or not. Does it engage? Does it connect with you? Does it make things that you are doing more interesting? And in that department of Audio, their engineers and their philosophy of sound, and they really tick the right boxes. Audio very much kind of, and I've had a couple of talks with the people from Audio already. They kind of very much remind me of the same sort of vibe that Plunge Audio have Um, they are first and foremost worried about the musical aspect of an IEM. It has to be something that you connect with, that you enjoy listening to, and that brings long hours of interaction between the two of us. You know, the human being and the machine. Let's put it that way. And in that aspect, I mean, this is without doubt, in my opinion, in my ears, with the music that I like listening and with the hundreds of IEMs that I have, because that's the reality. This is without doubt one of the most musical IEMs that I have. And that's a tall order. That's some serious praise there. Now, does it being musical and engaging and satisfying mean that it's now going to be the ultimate in correctness? No, obviously not. No, if we are, and you know, and we could now start subdividing the levels of musicality. It's musical, just purely musical. It's musical, fun. It's musical, technical. No. This I'm just going for the most, let's say, straightforward of divisions: musical or clinical. Musical it is, and it is in a big way. It's an IEM that definitely kept me, you know, kept me glued to my music and wanting to listen to it, you know, a lot longer than some other IEMs that I have sometimes do. I remember one of the days that I actually went out with the IEM. I took a longer than what was expected walk in one of the hills that we have around the area where I live. I was gonna have a little small hike of around 10 kilometers, and when I took notice, I had walked almost 20, and it was just down to not only, well, obviously the company I was with my wife, but also the fact that I was enjoying so much the listening to it, and it just, time just passed. And that's, I think, the biggest praise that I can give the Amarantine. Now, obviously, you guys are not here or there with regards to that. You guys want to know, yes, but how good is it, Tony? How's the bass, and how's the mids, and how's the highs, and does it sound stage well, and does it image well, and does it do this? Okay, let's get into that and satisfy your curiosity. What have I got here? What did I bring out? Well, I brought out the D100 because, as I said, I find the Amarantine to be very much a BA version of the D100, okay, in many aspects. And then I've got here possibly my favorite IEMs when it comes to this, like 5BA, 4BA selection. Which are those IEMs? The Softy is the Studio 4, the NF Audio NE4, and the EPZ 530. Okay, you guys might ask, oh, but what about the RSV? Yes, fine, I could have had the RSV here, but since I've got the Studio 4, and the Studio 4 and the RSV are so similar, I thought, you know, let's just stick with the Studio 4. Studio 4, the price is around $350. The NF Audio, or NF Acous, if you want to call it that way now, which is the current name, the NE4 was around $700. This particular unit I paid, I believe it was $549 for it. The EPZ 530, which has now got a Pro version, so this is still the original version of the 530. This is just over $400. The Amarantine, as I mentioned, is about 500, and the D100 is about the Helios is about 289, if memory doesn't if I don't forget. Anyway, let's get into it. Bass, very nicely done. I mean, it is one of the aspects that immediately when I heard the Amarantine, I was impressed. It's got just the right balance between weight and the expected cleanliness and dynamic feel that the BA bass has. So it's definitely a highly it's a speedy bass. It's a very quality focused bass, but it's got that warmth that, by looking at the graph, mind you wouldn't expect. Usually when BAs are attempting to fetch that extra warmth, they have a tendency of bloating that 50 to 250 hertz region to give this illusion of weight, to kind of try and emulate the physicality that you get from a DD. But in this case, no, it's a very kind of gliding style of bass. If I was to give it or tell you what the actual gain is, we're talking roughly from the lowest point to the highest point. We're talking around 10 dBs, but a lot of those 10 dBs is actually below 50. So from 50 hertz to its lowest point, we're talking about 6-7 dBs of gain. Pinna gain is about the same thing, 5.5-6 dBs. And what basically that means is that the meat and potatoes of music between the 50 hertz and, let's put it, 6-7 kilohertz area, all of that sits within this nice window of roughly 6 and something dBs. And that translates to what? It translates to this very, very well done cohesion of sound. Everything just comes together super well in terms of the bass going into the mid bass, then going into the lower mids, and then to the mids, and then into the upper mids, and then everything just flows very nicely. There's no gaps, there's no real distinction of, okay, here we got the bass and here is the mids. No, everything just goes together very nicely, and it sounds like one driver doing everything. Okay, so bass is phenomenally well done in my opinion. Clean, just enough right amount of weight, it doesn't bloat, it doesn't, and surprisingly, which was one of the aspects that also surprised me, although I like listening to to a lot of jazz and blues and so on and so forth, it did some EDM really well. I was really impressed with it, very, very well. The transition to the mids, flawless. It's got a beginning of a pinna gain, which is a little bit earlier than usual, just below 1 kilohertz, and it peaks at about 1.8, 1.9. So you would think, maybe vocals are a little bit too forward, but again, no. The way that it's been done, and because it's such a relatively narrow banded pinna gain, it just gives vocals, especially male vocals, this energy, this lushness, this very organic, very realistic, very musical feel, and it's an absolute pleasure to listen to it in terms of vocals. Again, let me make this perfectly clear, in my ears, with my music, okay. Transition to the high is perfect. It just flows beautifully. The high, all the high frequency comes across very well executed, clean, detailed, always very balanced. Now, of course, if you ask me, but what is it in terms of those frequencies compared to the others? And I'll get into that. Yes, I will say that occasionally there was one or two songs that I, just because of personal preference, I would have said, okay, I would have liked a little bit more treble, a little bit more twinkles and sparkles. But you know what? The driver coherence, the way that they've matched all the drivers to sound so uniformly connected as one unit has been so well done that I can live with in maybe this song or that song are not having the ultimate in terms of the every single little detail that you can possibly imagine. I mean, let me see a song that, for example, Comfort Zone, the live version from Larry Carlton is one such song. Let me see another one. Up and Up from Jeff Ryan is another song that just a little bit extra energy would have been nice. But again, I am 54 years old. Maybe that energy is there. Maybe those of you which are younger than me and still have perfect hearing won't agree with me, because you'll listen to it and you'll say, oh, that's fine. It's got... And like I said, this is probably the only nitpick I'm really going to give it, is one or two times, yes, a song I would have liked just a little bit more detail. But overall, where it counts to me in terms of its musicality, it ticks not the 10 out of 10, it ticks 20 out of 10. In terms of its timbre and tonality, again, spotless, perfect. Soundstage, a little bit more intimate. It's not that big, huge soundstage. It doesn't create that soundstage that, for example, the EPZ 530 creates, which is kind of, stadium kind of. No, it's a more cozy, more closed venue kind of soundstage, but more than sufficient, more than adequate, mind you. Listening to the Amarantine is, and I've used this analogy plenty of times. It's like listening. My apologies. It's like listening to an old vintage pair of speakers that is really good. Listening to some serious old school speakers, but really good stuff, and having that connected up with a valve amplifier, with a vacuum tube amplifier, and that those harmonics, those distortions that the valve amplifiers create, and that you have in vinyl, all of those little cracks, and it just creates this very realistic sense of performance, which, if you guys have never experienced it live, and you've never heard it live, or had the opportunity to hear a proper system playing back, what I'm saying, you won't really understand. It's like it's like the analogy of, okay, modern cars are very nice with all of their bells and whistles that can do everything, and traction control this and traction control that, but there's nothing that beats driving a well sorted old school car with a nice good old fashioned 5-speed gearbox and carburetors, and nothing beats it, period. I don't care if you have an electric car that does 0 to 100 in 1 second, and it does, I don't care. There's nothing, but there's absolutely nothing that beats that old school. And that's what the Amarantine is about. It is an absolute pleasure. You guys might, oh, Tony's just overdoing it. No, I'm not overdoing it. I'm being as realistic and as down to earth as I can possibly be. And you guys know that when I like something, I don't have an issue with saying that I like it. When I don't like it, I'll say I don't like it. But hey, maybe someone else will like it. That's the reality. So in terms of its frequency division, everything is in the right place. Bass, mids, treble, everything spotless. A little bit extra energy once or twice I would have liked, but not a problem. Honestly, this is spot on. It is, as I was saying, and now jumping now to this quick comparison to the other IEMs here, it's basically the D100, but in BA version. Okay. It doesn't have the weight of the B of the D1 of the Helios in terms of bass overall. It doesn't. You've got that more physical aspect here on the Helios, definitely, but the overall vibe of the sound is very similar. Bass, mids, they all sound extremely similar. And what is going on now? Okay. As I was saying, the overall vibe of the bass and the mids and the highs is very similar, just with a little bit less weight in terms of the lower frequencies in the Amarantine as compared to the Helios. Now, comparing it now where it matters, which is with the other BA IEMs. Let me just take here the Helios out of the way so I can get a little bit more space and show things here a little bit better. Okay, there's definitely, I would say, two groups. Or 3 groups. Let's put it, yeah, 3 groups. I think it's probably better. We have the neutrality and the correctness of the Studio 4. We have the Anoli VX energetic kind of vibe that the EPZ 530 offers. And then you have the NE4, which, because of the virtue of these faceplates that can be exchanged, and these faceplates then provide different tunings, is very much a jack of all trades. And this again is an IEM that I feel, unfortunately, and to a great extent, the reason for that also was the price, never really received the deserved value. It is a phenomenally well built IEM that, with this versatility of the faceplates, can become a kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And in the current faceplate, which is the one that I like the most, it's basically the red and the black, and there's two other faceplates. But in the red and the black, and the biggest difference being the red offers a bit more bass, even if that extra more bass comes at the cost of then it losing a little bit of clarity. But it's with this faceplate that the NE4 and the Amarantine more closely match each other. And to cut a very long story short, the reality is this: they sound very, very similar. The Amarantine does edge out the NE4 with this particular faceplate in terms of being a little bit less cleaner in the bass department. It's not as bloated, and when you see the graph you'll understand what I'm saying. But then the rest of the frequency response is very, very similar in terms of its sound. Yeah, there are differences visually, but the sound that either one of them produces is very similar. If I change it into the black faceplate, yes, that does neutralize a lot of that bass bump that we get with the red faceplate here on the NE4, and then yes, the similarities are there still, but the NE4 sounds thinner. It kind of loses that let's say physicality, if you want to put it that way, that it has with the red faceplate, that confers then the bass that extra weight and just makes the sound more organic, which is what the Amarantine does flawlessly well. So overall, the takeaway here is they are very similar sounding, honestly, very similar sounding, with the NE4 having that extra versatility of the faceplates, offering the possibility of having a different slightly more a different sound, but it loses, in my opinion. The Amarantine becomes the NE4 becomes with the black faceplate perhaps a little bit too BA-ish like, although it's still very well done. In the red faceplate, they are very similar, very similar. The Studio 4, it's very easy to pick up on the Studio 4. It's extremely neutral presentation. Nothing is done in a way that's going to be overly cooked or overly, nothing. There is a little bit of similarity in terms of how the bass is done on both of them, but the bass on the Amarantine is just that little extra more energetic. The difference that I did notice between the two of them is, well, a product of two things. The product of also the bass here being slightly less noticeable, but in that 2 to 4 kilohertz area, there's a little bit extra energy here in the case of the Studio 4, which does confer then female vocals a little bit more detail, a little bit more liveliness, but I wouldn't call that necessarily better. It's just a different flavor. Overall, although the Studio 4 is an exceptional IEM, exceptional, and it's highly musical as well, I myself personally do prefer the Amarantine. That's the reality. Yes, the Studio 4 does have a slightly lower price going for it, and there's also another version now which is like a bluish color, very beautiful IEM. That could be let's say a strong reason for you maybe to pen towards the Studio 4, but the Studio 4 overall in terms of sound, it doesn't match the Amarantine in terms of musicality. The organic aspect of sound, the more realistic aspect of sound, the Amarantine is heads. It's the winner. On the Studio 4 as well, you do notice occasionally a little bit of that BA DNA, which on the Amarantine I never noticed, to be honest. And then finally the EPZ 530. The EPZ 530, as you guys also know, is one of my long-time favorite IEMs. I was probably one of the few people, if not the first one, that really shined the light on the 530. It is, and I said it at the time and I'll say it again, it is very much an ODA VX at a 1/8 of the price, or a 1/10 of the price, let's put it that way. Very engaging, very fun, very highly detailed, a lot of details, but obviously it does come at a price. It comes at a price that it can be a little bit too bright for some might consider it to be just a tad excessive in the energy that it has, although yes, it is manageable with a little bit of a sensible volume control, and it does then become slightly colored. All right. When I show you the graphs, you'll see that there's some similarities in terms of how that the 530 and the Amarantine is tuned. There is a lot of similarities there, but the EPZ is a more energetic presentation. It's a more colored presentation. So it wouldn't be fair for me to say the Amarantine is better or the 530 loses. No, they are two different flavors, and I would say that these two are side grades to each other, because they make sense. If you have this one and you want something that equal in terms of sound but a little brighter, the 530 would be a good option, or the other way around. So they are side grades to each other. Compared to the Studio 4, I'm not saying this is better, not, again, they both are excellent. I just felt that the Amarantine just satisfied me personally a little bit more. And then compared to the NE4, I think it's, like I said earlier, it's just the one that sounds and can be made to sound the most equal to the Amarantine. Obviously, there are differences in terms of the build quality. One is metal, the other one is that stabilized wood kind of shell, which is beautiful, not taking anything away from the NE4, by the way. And again, I would say ultimately, end of the day, which would be the one that I would choose, I would go for the Amarantine. Honestly, I would go, because yes, it's all very nice, this whole faceplate thing, but let's be honest about it. We're not going to really be changing the faceplate all the time, right? So, and also the NE4 was a little bit more expensive than when the Amarantine. Even when, I mean, I'm not sure 100% if it's still available or not, but I do recall this being like $799 or something of the sort. So it was serious money. guys, and that's basically it. Like I said, the 1 dot audio is definitely a brand that I would keep an eye out there. Jason Tang and his guys, they know what they are doing, definitely, much like Simon Finnick from Plunge Audio. They know what they're doing. They're not playing around in, oh, let's make some IEMs kind of vibe. No, they know what they're doing. And not only the D100, the Helios, and now the Amarantine, those are solid proofs that they do know what they're doing. So I am really, really looking forward to their flagship. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I think that's enough. They are going to have a really, really impressive flagship IEM coming out, and I'm looking forward to see what they can do in a more complex multiple driver arrangement. I'm sure that they're not going to disappoint. Anyway, guys, let me just quickly show you the graphs, and we'll wrap this up. Hi guys, let's talk now graphs very quickly. This is the graph of the Amarantine, okay? And looking at it, you can take some ideas out of what the sound's going to be like. You can see that the bass is extremely well done, nice sub bass focus, very nicely done. Gliding and everything. Picks up to the pin again. Peaks relatively early, like I said, 1.8 kilohertz. Then there's this dip here that does maybe with those of you that are a little bit more peaky, kind of take away a little bit of energy from some vocals, mostly females, and maybe make some instruments not sound as intense as you would like. I didn't think that. I thought that anything, wind instruments, cymbals, guitar plucks, everything just came across in the right amount of energy. It didn't in any way. No, that's an issue there. No, it was fine. Only on hi-hats, maybe here and there, just that ultimate little bit of a high upper end, maybe a little, but guys, that's nitpicking. And then there's this dip here around the 5 kilohertz area, which is nice and welcomed as well, and good extension past 10k. It just sounds phenomenal, guys. Trust me, when I say this thing sounds good, it sounds good. This next graph is the D100, the Helios. And you can see kind of some sort of the same vibe on the overall tuning. Obviously, significantly bigger bass, without a question. But the way that the pin again is done here as well, and how it kind of balances it out, or in the same manner. Let me just quickly try and show what I mean. If you look here, 100 hertz point, okay, it kind of 100 hertz point there. Okay, you see how it kind of that energy that we have there just stays above whatever we have over here. Okay, now let's do it here with the Helios. 100 hertz point. See, it's the energy that we have here, it stays above or equal to what we have there. So what we get is this nice, lush, organic type of presentation. Very, very nice. Okay, now let's go here into the other IEMs. Let's show you. Actually, let me first show you here the NE4. Sorry, in its two different configurations of the faceplates. So we have the black faceplate, which I forgot to balance it out there. Okay, that's the black faceplate. And it sounds nice, but it loses a lot of that energy there, so it sounds overly neutral, I would say. So that's why I prefer the red faceplate, which does confer a nice big bass bump there. Okay, very similar, just a little bit more energy as well on top there, but the balance that is struck ultimately is very, very similar. And you maybe here and there I could pick up on a little extra detail on the NE4, but not as much as you would possibly think, and that's down to this extra energy given here to the mid bass. Okay, so that's that. Next one is the Studio 4 from Soft Tears, and you can see that they are surprisingly tuned in a very similar manner, very similar in terms of the bass, the way that it glides. And I think it's, like I mentioned, it's just here in the upper mids that you notice, you will pick up on a difference between the two of them, in terms of how how female vocals in some instruments may come across. Ultimately, that balance that's then struck, and if again I do that same exercise that I like doing, 100 hertz point, okay, and you see how much energy you now have here, okay, and that's, you can pick up on it, while on the Amarantine. Pay attention, see? I think it's self-explanatory. And then finally the EPZ, the 530. The 530 kind of has the same sort of base as the NE4, as you guys can see, but it's a little bit more full in terms of this lower mids part. Okay, but now just leaving the 530 here. 530, you can see very similar sort of vibe, the same gain, then a dip, then a gain, then a dip, then a gain, then a dip, and then a gain. And you see it's very similar. Actually, if I just do here something for you guys to see, if I actually lower the 530 to be on the same energy level, you can see very similar, and they do sound similar. Yes, more detail definitely because of a higher energy level, but overall at being normalized at 500 hertz, that you can see that there's surprisingly a lot of similarity in the let's say bass tuning format. Okay, and that's it, guys. I hope I was able to give the Amarantine its deserved attention. Where is it? There we go. It's deserved attention. It's deserved merit, because it is a phenomenal IEM. Trust me, when I say that this thing is good, it's good. Yeah, I'm not saying it just for the sake of saying it, or just for the sake of satisfying the parties involved. No, it is a really nice IEM. I was really impressed with its performance. And if you have the opportunity to listen to it, if you live in that part of the world which does have all these stores available, which is not the case here in Portugal, unfortunately, have a listen to it, and I'm sure you guys will not be disappointed. Take your music, take your time, don't do any rush listening, and you will be impressed. You will be. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions that you might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye bye.